we should expect a bit of an adjustment period coming back under a new coach, and he hasn't played a competitive game since the end of last season, despite he was one of only 6 Senators to play all 82 games.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, Ross, at least this time around, Shane Pinto is fully healthy. It's not like before where he missed abundance of time from injuries. So he's been skating. I assume he's been keeping in shape, like all these things. So apart from like pace of play and getting back into the competitive mix, he should be good to go. But I do agree we got to give him a bit of a grace period, maybe three to 5 games to kind of get back into the swing of things. So it'll be interesting to see how Jacques Martin utilizes him to get things going.
How would you utilize Shane Pinto, Pilsy? Are you throwing him right into the fire, or would you like to have him kind of slow and steady pick up to where he left off?
Kind of in the middle, Ross. Like throwing him into the fire, I would assume would be kind of putting him into a top 6 role, which unfortunately he had to play a lot of second line center last season with Josh Norris injured. And slow and steady would be putting him on the 4th line. So I'm going to meet right in the middle and put him on the 3rd line, where I believe Shane Pinto, that's where he slots in perfectly into this lineup. Now, the issue, and good problem to have, but we haven't had a lot of time, as you mentioned, Ross, where we've seen Stützle, Norris, and Pinto all together. And then now with Ridley Gregg emerging as a great centerman, and Rook Chartier, great defensive centerman, and you even have Mark Kaslik. Like, there are centermen to go around on this team. Some of these guys are going to have to move to the wing. And I was about to say an unpopular opinion, but I don't think that's the case. We had quite a lot of people in the chat saying that this is what they would do as well. I'm making the decision to move Norris to the wing. This is a guy that I think as a shoot first centerman in his career so far, I think he could have success on the wing. And are we going to read the lines fully here, Ross, or how do you want to go through this?
Yeah, finish your point. I think you're making some good points right now, and then we'll compare and contrast. People can see on YouTube, if you're watching here, what the lines are. I'm also going to post this on Twitter after we record, but just go off of your reasoning for where you're moving guys, and then we can go through it one by one if you'd like as well.
Yeah, so basically I'm moving Norris to the wing just because he's got one of the best shots, if not the best shot on this team, when he's confident and when he's using it. So I think if you can move him to the wing, kind of take away that stress and complication of playing a 2-way game and roaming around like you'd have to do as a centerman more than a winger, I think maybe you can get back to focusing on him just ripping the pill and doing a good job of it. So I've got Norris on the 2nd line with Stützle and Batherson, 2 guys that have playmaking ability and that can set him up for that shot. So I like that. And I wouldn't mind trying to capture some of that magic that back in the day when it was Tkachuk, Norris, Batherson. So I like the idea of having Norris and Batherson back together. And then Tim Stützle, you need to put solid players with him. And I think he could have success with those 2 guys.
So your top 6, you're not changing the top line as it stands the last couple of games. So you've got Gregg, Tkachuk, Giroux, and then you're going with Stützle at center with Norris and Batherson. That leaves Shane Pinto on the 3rd line with Joseph and Tarasenko. Your 4th line is Chartier, Kelly, and Kastelic. Funny enough, we've got very different lines, but we've chosen to take out the same players.
Yes.
Zach McEwen and Dominic Kubalik. Dominic Kubalik, I mean, it just hasn't worked. Look, he's scoring goals, but other than that, it's a negative value when he's been out there. And I hate to say it because he's a big body that can shoot the puck.
Yep.
But they've got some shooters already in here. So I like your lineup, Pilsy. I really do. Now, I'm going a different direction because for me, it's important, especially Norris coming off a minor injury. And thank God we don't know, it's upper body, right? Classic NHL speak. But I don't think it's related to his previous injuries. Otherwise, they wouldn't have him back out on the ice 3 days later.
It'd be more
have
serious,
him back in a contact jersey 4 days later. Okay, so I'm of the mind that Norris is going to come back and play as you'd expect him to. So I think it would send the wrong message to Norris to have him come back and play a position he's never played before. So at least for the start, I'm going strength down the middle. I'm having my 4 centermen, Stützle, Gregg, Norris, and Pinto. I don't want any of the guys who I feel can be long-term parts of this team, whether at center or on the wing, being put in a different position right away. Eventually, it could get to that, but I think Shane Pinto being on the fourth line for 1, 2, 3 games, it's very reasonable. And you can get him his touches on the power play. He's going to play on the penalty kill. He'll play 12, 14 minutes, and that's fine for me to start. So I've decided to move Chartier to the wing, and I've moved Kastelik to the wing as well. So the way that I would do this, because look, I had trouble breaking up that line of Greg Tkachuk, Giroux, but at the same time, I didn't want to have my lines too similar to yours. So I decided, look, Stützle and Tkachuk, we spoke about it on today's Locked On Senators. They both had multi-point nights, and they're 4-0. The Senators are when they each have multi-point nights. So I'm going to put them together. I want Stützle and Tkachuk to build that chemistry that they had before, and I want it back so bad. So I'm putting Stützle at center with Brady Tkachuk and Claude Giroux, a line that we knew worked last year. Then I'm putting together a line that worked this year. Ridley Gregg with Matthew Joseph and with Vladimir Tarasenko. That line was awesome for the first few weeks of the season before the injuries to Joseph and then Greg. So I'm putting those guys together. Then it's basically a 2A, 2B situation. I as well, and I know you said the same, I'm putting Norris and Batherson together. We know, we've seen it. You and I have seen it with our own eyes in Belleville, and we've seen it at the NHL level too. Those two play well together. Now, what's the knock on those two guys? Sometimes they're not always going in to dig out loose pucks. Sometimes they're not always forechecking as hard as you'd like. So I'm putting the shift disturber. I'm putting Parker Kelly in that third line left wing spot to go hound pucks and be a pest out there on left wing. Then I've got Pinto at center with Chartier and Kastelik. Look, Pinto's going to be a little rusty, so if you need someone to take a draw for him, you've got a line full of centermen, and then they can move up and down the lineup, but I've got Pinto, Chartier, and Casti as my fourth line, at least to start.
Yeah, I think those are great lines, Ross, and the way that top six shakes out for you is great. I would say your lines are more the temporary start lines. I don't anticipate Shane Pinto is going to remain on the fourth line very long. So eventually you're going to have to make that move. So I guess part of me was just like, just make the change up right away because this team is down bad. You have kind of the opportunity to experiment and try different things. And like Jacques Martin said, you want to try to spread out the offense here. So I think you're getting a nice spread here. So it's going to be interesting to see the approach that Jacques Martin takes because he doesn't really know Shane Pinto that well. Similar to when other guys were brought in, like Rourke Chartier. He's like, I don't know much about these guys, so I'm going to see how things go here. So I'm overall, I'm so excited that Shane Pinto's back. We're at this part of the season. Is it too little too late to actually make a comeback and make some noise at the end of the regular season? Probably, but these are the kinds of moves. And if you're the front office of the Ottawa Senators, also new guys in Steve Staios and Dave Poulin, you got to see what you got here. So this, if anything, Ross, the rest of this season is kind of like tryouts for these players and the new management because there are going to be more changes of that. I'm certain. It's just a matter of who do the top executives feel are going to be here and are going to be solutions to the problem, and who do they feel like, okay, it's time to move on from.